Good morning everyone, and thanks for attending today's webinar hosted by ImageFast. ImageFast are hosting a series of webinars around SharePoint 2013, and today's webinar is based on migrating to SharePoint. I'm quickly going to go through some housekeeping rules. If you do have any questions throughout the webinar itself, you can ask them in the right-hand side in the box, and then we'll answer them at the end. I'm now going to introduce you to our, the host for today. He's going to be talking about migrating to SharePoint, and that's Mark Haverty, who's the Principal Consultant at ImageFast.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark. Thanks for the introduction, Holly. Let's just start by looking at a quick agenda. I'm just going to take you through a brief introduction to ImageFast, to show you who we are and what we do. We'll talk about a little bit about the motivation to migrate to SharePoint 2013, discuss some of the migration approaches, the migration cycle, and we'll cover off some best practice and give us a Q&A session at the end. I think it's fair to say up front that this is not going to be an in-depth technical overview of migrating. This is very much an overview to give you a flavour of what to look out for, what's involved, and I'm trying to cover off some of the technical and business challenges that you'll come across when you're looking at migrating your own environments. So if we keep that in mind as we go through, that will become clear at the end. Okay, so a little bit about us. We're ImageFast, a technology and consulting company based in the City of London, right in the city. We have a background in document management, and been around since 1997. We have a dedicated SharePoint consulting practice, of which I'm part of, and obviously we also have dedicated support teams that support the SharePoint solutions we implement for our clients. We've got a broad client range across different verticals, but a strong kind of focus around financial services and insurance sectors as well. To give you an idea of some of the solutions we put together, I won't go through all of these in great detail, but just to give you a sense of the types of solutions we're implementing for our clients around on the SharePoint platform. And obviously today what we're going to be focusing on is the sort of migration projects we can help with. Just a bit of an overview of some of our strategic partners. Obviously, we're a Microsoft Gold Certified partner, have been for some time. We also partner with OpenText, and we've strategically partnered up with a number of companies that provide add-on solutions to SharePoint, which you can see in the SharePoint section there, and also from a workflow perspective and from a scanning point of view as well. Not really covering off any of those in this webinar, but some of those will be touched upon later on in the webinar series. So let's get into it and talk a little bit about the migration to Motivate to SharePoint 2013. On the left there you can see SharePoint 2007 screen, and on the right you can get a sense of the what SharePoint 2013 looks like out of the box. There are a number of reasons why we would want to look at moving to SharePoint 2013 now. It's been with us for some time. October 2012 was when we had the release to market, so it's mature on the market. We've got Service Pack now, and now's a good time to start thinking about migration. SharePoint 2013 brings a number of end-user enhancements, which it's all about helping with end-user adoption, and to that end, Microsoft have incorporated a number of enterprise social networking capabilities. Obviously, with the acquisition of Yammer, that's a big part of the SharePoint strategy. There's improved enterprise search with the integration of fast search right out of the box now, which is a massive improvement around the enterprise search capability. SharePoint apps, they're all about helping business users deploy functionality to SharePoint without the need for IT. So in previous, for technical people on the webinar, these were previously been referred to as more sandbox solutions. That now we've got an app store. You can have, there's obviously a public app store, but you can also deploy your own private app store within your enterprise to allow business users to deploy the functionality they need to their sites. Another motivation is a big push to online with SharePoint 2013, and one of the great things with this is obviously we can go on premise or look to the cloud for deployment, or we can do a hybrid of both, which is great and gives a lot of flexibility. It's worth saying that this webinar is really kind of focusing on migrating in an on-premise scenario, but we can cover off cloud separately if that's of interest to any of you on the webinar. There's also improved support for mobile devices and enhanced enterprise and web content management capabilities and business intelligence solutions as well. So just a few of the reasons why businesses are looking to migrate at this point. So a little bit of a history lesson then from the point of view of migrating previously in SharePoint. So if we look back to SharePoint, Microsoft Office SharePoint Server 2007 or MOS, and we wanted to migrate to SharePoint 2010, we really had three options available. We could do an in-place upgrade, a database attach upgrade, or leverage third-party tools to help with the upgrade. The in-place upgrade, to be honest, was a bit of a nightmare, and the concept with an in-place upgrade is to take the existing hardware that SharePoint 2007 was running on and just upgrade to SharePoint 2010 on top of that same hardware. There's some things to look out for. In SharePoint 2007 we could have a 32 or 64-bit versions, SharePoint 2010 64-bit only. So assuming the hardware matched up and we could do an in-place upgrade, that would work. However, it was prone to a number of issues, which you can see on screen here. So you know, having done a number of in-place upgrades myself, I think it was generally recognized that that was a bad approach. So much more safe and predictable was to leverage a database attach upgrade approach, which essentially you install SharePoint on separate hardware, you leave your SharePoint 2007 farm running, and you take the content databases and the databases associated to your services, applications, and what have you, and attach them to the new farm environment, and then upgrade them there. This allows you to do a lot more granular type of upgrades and run them, the two environments in parallel. Minimal downtime for the end users. And in most cases, we'd put SharePoint 2007 environment in read-only mode while we were doing the data migration. So database attach upgrades much more predictable and much safer approach. Upgrading to SharePoint 2013 is again made much safer than we predictable than we would have seen before with the 2000 to 2010 migration. The idea being that we can deliver, give more power to delegate to the end users. Downtime is minimized, but there is a key thing to keep in mind here. There is no direct upgrade from SharePoint 2007 to 2013. So I'm going to cover this off in this webinar briefly, but essentially with an upgrade from 2007, you have to migrate through 2010 before going to SharePoint 2013. Let's start to see some of the language changing here and moving away from the term upgrade to migration. And the reason for that is there is no more in-place upgrade option. So we don't have the ability to just upgrade SharePoint on the same hardware that we were running our SharePoint 2010 or 2007 environment. The database attach upgrade is really the methods that needs to be followed, and obviously there are third-party tools with that as well. But SharePoint 2013 delivers a number of migration solutions, so therefore we start to really think of this more of a migration than an upgrade. So we can have site collection health checks, evaluation site collections. We can defer the site collection upgrade, which I'll come on to. We've got site upgrade throttling, so we can kind of queue sites as they're being upgraded. We've got site maintenance logs and improved unified logging and upgrade logs as well. So all in all, much better migration solutions available when planning a migration to SharePoint 2013. Okay, so let's just look at the kind of two approaches. So SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013, essentially very, very high level, and I'll get into this in more detail. We install our SharePoint 2013 farm. We set our SharePoint 2010 farm to read-only, copy our databases from SharePoint 2010 to 2013, then upgrade the databases, then upgrade the site collections. Now, that's a very high-level process. Obviously, there's an approach and a methodology to how you actually do that, which we'll cover off here. So, but from a basic point of view, you've got your two farms running in parallel, your 2010 environment and your new 2013 environment, and so the end users downtime is minimal, and they're not really affected until the live migration. It's worth saying that the hardware requirements for SharePoint 2013 are somewhat greater than they were for 2010, but again, we'll cover that off. So what if we are wanting to go from 2007 to 2013? Well, I touched on it a moment ago. What we need to do is install 2 farm environments. So we need to install a temporary SharePoint 2010 farm and then our production SharePoint 2013 farm, and whatever environments we have with that, be it production, UAT and development. But we need to have those environments up and running before we start the migration. So all of the things that we just covered off on the 2010 to 2013 migration still stand, but we've got this extra step. So we copy the databases from SharePoint 2007 to 2010, then do the upgrade process there. Then we copy them from 2010 to 2013 and upgrade them to 2013. There's obviously other elements along the way, which we'll talk about now. So that gives you a high-level approach to the migration. Now let's sort of look at the migration cycle. And, there's lots of different scenarios and different people approach this a different way. What I'm trying to present here is a kind of 5-step cycle that is sensible to follow. So we plan our migrations, so determining what our business strategy is, the technical strategy, start thinking about communicating to our end users, what's going to be involved. Very important to engage the business at this early stage, make them aware of what's going to be happening. But also at the same time, we start to clean up our SharePoint 2007 and or 2010 environments before actually starting the migration. With preparing, we put the new SharePoint 20 farm in, 2013 farm in rather, then we run some test migrations with real data, which we then validate the results and if necessary, create a fixed plan, which we then execute, and do multiple cycles of this test upgrading until we're comfortable and confident that what we're going to have is a predictable upgrade in the live environment, which is the final step, really, the complete the live upgrade to SharePoint 2013. So to get into that into a little bit more detail then, so planning, we need to audit the existing SharePoint environment, and that means looking at how many farms we've got in our environments, the farm settings. We need to audit the web applications we've got, site collections, content databases, service applications if we're running SharePoint 2010, and obviously in 2007 that would have been the shared services provider, which was deprecated with the introduction of 2010, but we need to understand what those service applications are doing. Look at security and permissions, and very important, log and understand all of the customizations that are in place in our environment. So looking at customizations in a little bit more detail, what does that mean? Well, that could be farm and or sandbox solutions that we've got deployed, custom web parts, any workflows that we've deployed, custom branding, site definitions, third-party solutions, or any custom features. So yeah, very important to get a handle on how to what you've got in your existing environment, and there's a number of tools to help do that if you've got a large farm. Moving on to how do we prepare the environment. So we then provision and implement the new hardware that's required if we're for 2010 and 2013. Obviously only 2010 if we need that intermediate step between 2007 and 2013. But the hardware is implemented and provisioned. We provision the required service applications within the SharePoint 2013 farm, then configure the farm to match what we're doing in SharePoint 2010. So configure web applications, manage paths, alternative access mappings, and so on. Then set up managed accounts, any block file types, usage and health, logging, and email settings. So that's really what the preparation step is all about, making sure that the environment we're migrating to has got the core features and functionality it needs when we then upgrade our content, databases, and service applications. Also, as part of that preparation step, we need to clean the existing environments. So that's removing any unrequired solutions, customizations, and features. Delete unused content and sites. That's very important. As part of the audit, it's important to take a look at what sites you've got out there, what content you've got out there that actually do you still need anymore as part of the, does it need to be upgraded? If not, either migrate it out into separate content that database that you're not going to upgrade, or delete it altogether. Check and repair any content database consistency errors. We can do all of this through PowerShell. Consider moving site collections into separate databases. So if we've got a large number of site collections within a single content database, depending on how big they are, what kind of content is in there, it may be safer and from a performance perspective make more sense to split those out into separate content databases before starting the migration. Removal of PowerPoint broadcast sites, what that's really about is removing sites that are no longer supported with SharePoint 2013. So when Microsoft implemented 2013, they discontinued a number of sites and features, and really the PowerPoint broadcast site is just an example, but other sites include meeting workspaces, document workspaces, and so on. So there's a list available of discontinued features and sites that need to be removed before commencing the migration. Turning off the web analytics service application, again, that's just a removed service application in 2013. It's integrated in other areas. So that's really the preparation step. And then we go into the test process of test migration itself. So that involves copying databases to the new farm, upgrading the service applications, then upgrading content databases, then upgrading the site collection. So copy the databases to the new farm using SQL Management Studio to back up the databases, then restore them into the new farm, create the sort of empty web applications, apply any customizations that are required, and then use PowerShell to mount the databases into the new farm. So there's a couple of steps involved there, but that's really essentially bringing the content from the old farm into the new. And it's advised and quite important to use real data here for these test migrations to get a real sense of what the experience is going to be like when you do the actual upgrade. Having done that, we then upgrade the service applications, and that includes obviously the service applications that you require in your business. So manage metadata, for example, performance point, the BCS, BDC, they may be seen as optional, but things like secure store and the user profile service applications will all be required. And then it's a question of upgrading the content databases, again, mounting those content databases through PowerShell. So content databases for any site collections, and also My Sites if you're deploying My Sites in your environment. So upgrading those site collections, we run site collection health checks, and that looks for conflicting content types, missing galleries, missing parent content types, and so on, and kind of lets you know what's happening. And then as an optional step, we can create an evaluation site collection. So that again is about really taking a copy of the site collection that might be running in 2010 mode once you've mounted it in the 2013 environment, into an evaluation web application, which we can then use to upgrade to 2013 mode to see what the end user experience is going to be like, what happens with the interface, what happens with our customizations, and that's good because it doesn't affect the end users at all. So even if you upgrade and you let your users access content in that site collection running in SharePoint 2010 mode, we can be evaluating what that is going to look like in 2013 without them being affected. Once we've got that and we're happy with it, we then upgrade the site collection, then verify that we've got everything we need and it's running well in SharePoint 2013 mode. So having done all of that, the validation process really is about reviewing upgrade logs and application event logs, reviewing and validating web applications, site collections and content databases and those service applications, make sure that any customizations we've put in are working as required, and then also creating a fix list. Invariably there will be things that need to be looked at, and that's why we really have this cycle of this migrating through this approach of doing it in a cycle, so that we can do multiple tests, create our fix list, fix the items that need to be fixed, test again, and just keep doing that until we've got it right for the live upgrade. Having done that, the upgrade itself, we've fixed all the issues identified in our fix list, and in the validation step, we've repeated as many times as we like, and now we're doing the live migration. So that's a kind of very high-level approach to what's involved in migrating. There's some things to be aware of. So workflows, SharePoint 2013 workflows are built on Windows Workflow Foundation 4, whereas 2010 workflows are built on Workflow Foundation 3. So there's a couple of things to consider here. Do we want to upgrade those workflows ahead of migrating, as part of the migration? Do we need the workflows? Can they be deleted? Do we want to leverage third-party tools? But if you do have a lot of workflows in your 2010 environment, they're one of the things that just as best practice to get a good handle on what's going on with them ahead of the migration. You may find missing server-side files, so that's just a question of making sure that all the server-side customizations that are required from the 2010 environment are installed in the 2013 environment. You should have gathered that as part of the inventory in the planning phase, so it's just a question of making sure everything's in ahead of migrating. Where there's a large number of site collections in a content database, I touched on this earlier, it makes sense to separate those out into separate content databases, both from a performance perspective, but also reduce the risk of content being taking a long time to actually migrate across. We need to look at what sites are based on old site templates, and there's a PowerShell command we can use to help find those sites in our existing 2010 farm. So it's the get-sp site PowerShell command, where we kind of look for sites with a matching template. So PowerPoint broadcast is one, for example. And we can provide a list of those templates that are deprecated as part of a migration plan. Finally, authentication. By default, SharePoint 2013 uses a claims-based authentication model, whereas 2010 uses a classic authentication model. So if we take a web application that's running in classic authentication mode in 2010, we're going to want to upgrade that probably ahead of the migration to be a claims-based web application. Or we can create our web application in classic mode in the 2013 farm, migrate it, upgrade it, and then convert it to claims based on that side. So again, it's just a question of being aware of what authentication model you're using ahead of the migration. Some other best practice things then, we've got some PowerShell commands to help us test the content database. The pre-upgrade check that we saw in 2010 is no longer available in 2013. So we use test SP content database to find out what our content databases are going to, how they're going to upgrade. Very important to engage the business and where possible, find champions in the business to help, with the deployment of SharePoint 2013 for your business, your end users, so that runs smoothly. And as part of that, it's important to build a communication plan. So keeping everyone informed, tell them what's going on, tell them what's working, what's not working as part of the migration, but doing that will really help with the end user adoption as part of the once the migration is done. In any SharePoint environment, it's important to have a governance plan, but it's important really from a migration point of view to have a governance plan that's mapped to the business value that you're expecting to be delivered with the implementation of SharePoint 2013. So that's a key element. Use real data in the test migrations and just run multiple test migration loops until you're satisfied that your upgrade is going to run as expected. And if necessary, defer the upgrades of site collections until updated customizations are in to support 2013. So as I mentioned, we can migrate a content database across, but run it in SharePoint 2010 mode. So the end user's experience looks the same as they would expect to see in a SharePoint 2010 farm, and that may be a suitable approach where you do have those customizations that perhaps need to be upgraded to 2013 rather than waiting to do the migration. Get the migration done, get the customization sorted, and then upgrade the site collection to run in 2013 mode. So it's a very high level overview there of the migration. I hope that was useful. If there's any questions, please use the panel. Let's just see if I can bring the panel up here. Bear with me. Sorry, bear with me. So, got a question from Russ here. In the scenario of upgrading for SharePoint 2007, 2010, 2013, does my license to use SharePoint give me scope for 3 separate installs at once? No is the short answer. The licensing has changed in SharePoint 2013 quite significantly, but where you do need a temporary SharePoint 2010 farm, quite honestly, you know, the temporary license available from Microsoft is suitable, you know, assuming the upgrade is planned and the migration is planned properly. The temporary license should be more than enough time to give you a functioning farm for the duration of the migration. Okay, I don't think we have any more questions, so I'm going to hand back over to Holly now. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So just a quick overview of how ImageFast can help, really, and that's by, we appreciate, like Mark's mentioned, this is a high-level webinar. We've had plenty of experience with migrating our clients, you know, from different platforms of SharePoint to 2013. So what we're really offering you is the chance to have a one-on-one with yourselves, so offering a free 2 to 3 hour consultation with our SharePoint experts. We also have a lot of white papers on our website, so if you go to www.imagefast.co.uk, you'll find a lot on SharePoint. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a series, so we do have a webinar in 2 weeks' time, and that's focusing on workflow options within SharePoint 2013. So that's Thursday the 3rd of April, and that again will be at 11:30. If you've got any other questions related to SharePoint or this webinar itself or anything else, you can contact us at marketing@imagefast.co.uk, or you can give us a call. So we hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and if there are any more additional questions, we'll be sure to get back to you after.